Hi everyone, I'm Brenda Cardinal of stampintulip.stampinup.net. Thank you for joining us for the July 2021 Stampin' Class by Mail, where we're celebrating Christmas in July. This month's class features the Tidings of Christmas suite by Stampin' Up. I've teamed up with fellow demonstrator Gina Wieselman to offer these monthly classes by mail. This month, it's Gina's turn to show you how to make your cards, and next month it'll be my turn. Be sure to watch to the end of the video for a sneak peek of the cards I designed for August and for some bonuses for signing up for the class. Have fun making your cards. Here's Gina.
Thanks, Brenda. Hi everyone, I'm Gina Wieselman of MySweetPaper.com, and I can't wait to show you how to stamp and assemble your cards using the Tidings of Christmas suite from Stampin' Up. This suite can be found in the 2021-2022 annual catalog. From the suite, we'll be using the Tidings and Trimmings stamp set, Christmas Trimmings dies, Tidings of Christmas Designer Series paper, and the Evening Evergreen Chevron Weave ribbon. We'll also be using the Simply Elegant trim and Soft Succulent Open Weave ribbon, Hippo and Friends dies, and Banners Pick-a-Punch. If you ordered a kit from either Brenda or me, all the supplies have been cut to size for you. Just gather these items for assembly and you'll be ready to go. You'll need Cherry Cobbler and Evening Evergreen ink pads, Stampin' Seal, Stampin' Dimensionals, Mini Stampin' Dimensionals, Mini Glue Dots, a bone folder, paper snips, an assortment of clear blocks, and a Stamparatus if you have one. Please reach out to either Brenda or me if you need any supplies or if you'd like to learn more about becoming a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator or hosting an event. Let's get started. Our first design is the Hanging Stockings card. If you ordered a class by mail kit from either Brenda or me, all of the parts and pieces have been cut and shipped right to your door. If you're making the cards on your own without a class kit, pause the video here, prep all your supplies, and come back when you're ready to stamp and assemble. Anyone who has taken a class from me knows I always recommend stamping first. So we're going to start with our Cherry Cobbler ink pad. And we have the greeting plate for the front of the card. And I've already punched that using my Banners Pick-a-Punch. So on that greeting plate, I'm going to take the Cheers from Our Home to Yours stamp, ink it up, and I'm stamping relatively close to the right. Looks good. We also have our basic white cardstock that will go on the inside of the card, and I'm going to stamp a greeting in there. Now, of course, you could choose whichever greeting you like, but I am going with wishing you a joyful Christmas and Happy New Year. The other thing I'm going to stamp right away is my envelope. So I'm going to bring out my stocking stamp and just add that to the corner of the envelope. We're also going to be stamping both of these stockings, and to do that, I'm going to be using my Stamparatus. So I'll pull that in here and get it set up. I like to put a stamp set underneath the flap just so that it lays flat for me. And then the setup that I have here, since we are using a photopolymer stamp, which doesn't have that built-in foam backing, I'm going to put the foam sheet and then one of my grid papers, and I am just pushing them right up into the corner. And I'll use one of the Stamparatus magnets to hold that down. And then I've cleaned the stocking stamp, so I'm going to just peel that off of my block and put it down. I like to make sure it's not too close to the hinge, too close to the edge, but other than that, the placement really doesn't matter. So I'll pick that up. And then I'm just going to take my ink. I'm still using Cherry Cobbler for now. I'll ink that up, press down to transfer, and now I know placement-wise where this is going to go. So I can take the negative from the die cut, and I'm going to flip this over quickly, grab the other magnet, which is hiding, and I'm just going to line this up so that there's an even border. Put that in place and drop in the die cut piece. Now I can ink up my stocking again, close and apply pressure, and we have our stamped stocking. Now, of course, I need to also stamp the green stocking. I don't need to, you know, swap out the negative image at all, but of course I do need to make sure to clean my stamp. So I have my Simply Chamois wet, and instead of peeling it up, I'm just going to apply the chamois right to the stamp and get it clean that way. And now I will bring out my Evening Evergreen ink pad, ink up the stamp, and close. And there is the second stocking. With both of our stockings stamped, I am ready to assemble. So I'm going to take my Sahara Sand card base and use my bone folder to make a crisp fold along the score line. And then we'll start building up on this. First, I will put my inner panel on the inside. So I'll use just my regular Stampin' Seal adhesive for that. And center it with an even border on all four sides. Okay. Next, to build up our front, I will take my Designer Series paper. And I must note, I absolutely love this Designer Series paper pack. So many fun patterns. And I'm just going to back it on the Cherry Cobbler cardstock. I'll take that assembly right away and get that on the outside, excuse me. Don't want to put that on the inside. Definitely put that on the outside, the card front. Next, I'm going to add my banner with the greeting. And the placement of this, it's not super particular, but I want it to be lined up perfectly with the flap that opens. And then I'm aiming to have it approximately 1 1/4 inches from the bottom of this Cherry Cobbler cardstock. So you can see I'm trying to kind of line that up with my 0 line. Here's 1 1/4 inches, and that's about where I'm aiming for. Now, of course, you don't have to measure. This isn't a precise science, but I just want to make sure that there's enough room for the stockings to place and overlap. Next, we're going to add kind of a fun effect to the stockings. Now, I saw these and my thought was, we need a furry stocking trim. So what I'm going to do is just take my Stampin' Seal and put some across the stocking. And then I'll take my 1/2 inch basic white and I'm just lining it up with the bottom of where that trim piece would be. Then I'll just take my paper snips and trim right around the white so that it's the right size and shape for the stocking. Okay, and of course you have enough of the basic white. I will just do the same thing with my Evening Evergreen stocking as well. Now the next element that we're adding is this really pretty Evening Evergreen woven chevron ribbon. And it's a little too thick to create a loop with it on its own. That is not the right scale for the stockings. So what I did was fold it in half around my finger kind of overlap it like that and place that on the back of my stocking for the loop. Now, I found that it was easiest to just use a piece of Scotch tape on the back to hold this down, but you could certainly play around with other adhesives too. But the Scotch tape is actually about the right width for the stocking, so do that for both of my stockings. And now with these elements ready to go, we just need to pop them up on the card. So I will be using my Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to apply the red stocking first. And you know, I might actually grab a mini dimensional as well to put up next to the ribbon. I am being careful not to overlap with the ribbon because there's already some dimension there. So I don't want that to get uneven and popped up too much more than the rest of the card pieces. So I'll place this on first. And in terms of placement, I want to make sure there's a tiny bit of the designer series paper showing. And I'm putting it so that the trim of the stocking is just slightly above the greeting panel. And now we're going to attach our evening evergreen stocking. One thing to note is that part of this is going to be sitting up on the cherry cobbler stocking. So I am not going to add that mini dimensional this time. I'm just going to put one of the regular size dimensionals on the toe and one kind of in the middle. And that should be good enough to get this in place. Placement, again, not an exact science, just making sure there's some overlap. You can still read the greeting, and that everything looks well placed. And if we bring out our envelope, that is our first card design. Our second design is the diagonal star card. And here are all the parts and pieces for this design. Now, this is actually one rare occasion where I'm going to break my always stamp first rule. And the reason I'm doing that is because you can see we have these tone-on-tone stars stamped on the evening evergreen cardstock, and it just looked kind of funny to me if there were little chunks of stars showing between our strips of designer series paper. So what we're going to do is start first with adhering these strips. I decided to start with the longest strip first, and just try to maximize how much of that shows up. All I did was just try to make sure that I had a little overhang from each side when I was placing this piece. And you can play around with the angle a little bit too. But I'm just going to bring in my Stampin' seal. And for this first piece, I'm going to put it pretty much along the whole thing. Of course, this is Christmas trees showing up, so it is directional. And so I'm just going to look at the angle, maybe so there's about 3/4 of an inch to an inch of empty green space at the bottom. But again, not a big deal. With that one in place, you can trim the ends right away if you want, or you can go ahead and place your next piece. And for the next piece, what I found worked was just adhering directly onto the cardstock. And then I am going to start being careful. I'm not just going to put this in the center. I'm going to try to put it close to one end so that I get a big chunk of excess designer series paper on the other end. So I'll put that one in place. Then this next pattern, which is really pretty. And again, I'm trying to preserve as much excess designer series paper on the one side as possible. And then the last one. Placement-wise, you know, I'm just eyeballing the amount of green space between. There's so much going on this card that I'm not too worried about it being exactly perfect. But now I'll just flip it over And I do have a little extra adhesive on that first piece, but the rest of these I'll just trim from the back. These little pieces are scraps, but we are going to make use of the long pieces. As I was designing this card, I thought, you know, what a shame to have this strip of designer series paper that I can't do anything with. And then I had an aha moment and realized, wait a minute, why don't I just mirror this on the inside of the card? So I'm going to start with my longest piece of excess designer series paper, and I'm going to place it, doesn't really matter which way. Do pay attention if it is directional. This pattern I don't think really is, but I'm just going to place it at a diagonal on the inside of my card. And then I'll do the same thing with the other two pieces. This one is directional, so I'm going to make sure I put that in the right direction. And you can see I played around with the spacing a little bit more as well. So I left a little bit more white space. So there's a lot of different ways you can use these diagonal strips, but I really just love the way that it showcases so many patterns from the designer series paper. And if you think about how many cards you could get out of a pack of paper using this method, it's just amazing. Now with that initial bit of assembly done, I'm going to go ahead and stamp, starting with the Evening Evergreen and using this little star image. So I just have some scrap paper behind, and I'm just going to randomly place these stars in a way kind of creating my own designer paper. And like I mentioned, I am going for random and not behind the diagonal pieces. Okay. Well, I have this star stamp out. I'm actually going to just add a couple stars to the bottom of my envelope. And that's all of the Evening Evergreen stamping. Now, the only other stamping on this card is done with our Cherry Cobbler ink, and it's just stamping this greeting. So I'm going to take my Season's Greetings stamp, ink it up, and stamp that down. Oh, I was a little crooked, so let's flip it over and try again. And this is why we get to my philosophy of stamp first, adhere later, because I just got a free second shot and it looks much better. Now with this banner, I could use my Banner's Pick-a-Punch. This is a 1/2 inch piece, so it does fit in there, but it's so short that I was having a hard time holding on to it. So instead, I'm going to go back to one of my old tricks, which is to just snip up the side to the middle, and I'm gonna do that same amount on the other side, and then go from each corner to that center snip you created. There we go. And that's how I used to make banners before I got that banner punch, but it's still a really nice way if you have short pieces of paper like this, or if you have a size that isn't the exact right fit for the punch. Now with all the stamping done and our banner ready to go, it is time to assemble. So I'll take my Cherry Cobbler card base, fold that in half, and crease with my bone folder. And then right away, I'm going to take my Stampin' Seal and this piece with the diagonal paper for the inside and get that adhered. Then we're going to take that other piece of basic white and adhere our Evening Evergreen assembly to that. And then this whole assembly goes on to the front of the card. I just love this layered look. Okay. Now, when I was preparing your kits for you, you might notice it looks like there's tons of little pieces in this star, and there are, but the reason that so many pieces stuck is because I use adhesive sheets on the back to basically make this into a sticker. So as you peel that sticker piece, most of those little chunks should come out. If there are any that don't, of course, just pop them out. And then we're going to layer this gold foil star, which is effectively a sticker, right on top of our cherry cobbler star. Next, we're going to take this gold Simply Elegant trim, and I'm just going to wrap it around my fingers to create 3 loops. And then where it joins, I'm going to create a figure 8 with it. And then I always like to kind of tug at the pieces a little bit so that they're not perfect or exactly the same size. But this is going to go on the back of my star. And once again, there are a few different ways you could adhere this, but I'm just going to stick with good old Scotch tape. Okay. And once it's taped, you can still manipulate the placement a little bit. I'm going to take my Stampin' Dimensionals and pop this up on the card. And one of my tricks too, if it feels like your ribbon isn't quite where you want it to be, or if you're just worried about it being secure, you can actually take the dimensionals and overlap them with the ribbon. And I kind of view that as an insurance policy to make sure everything stays right where I want it. So I'll peel up the release paper. And I'm placing this so that my gold trim goes at a diagonal, almost kind of mirroring the diagonal of the Designer Series paper. The last thing to add is this banner greeting. Now you'll notice it's a little bit longer in this card than in the sample card. I decided to make it longer so that you have, well, for a couple of reasons. One, if you don't like exactly how your banner is cut the first time, you get a little bit more wiggle room for correcting it. But two, I also like how it looks spanning the star as well. So if you want it to be shorter, you can just come in and trim until you get it how you want it. So I'll trim just a little bit from this side too. And again, no real science to the placement of this, but I am going to use my mini dimensionals, cover up that crooked stamping, and place that on my card. And with our envelope, there's the second design. And our third and final card is our wonderful fun fold. And here are all the parts and pieces for this design. I'm going to return to my rule of stamping first, so I will use my Evening Evergreen ink pad. And the first thing I'm going to stamp is the greeting. Love this, it's the most wonderful time of the year. And we're going to stamp it right on this tag, which has been die cut for you, actually from the Hippo and Friends set of dies, which I thought they were super cute with the whimsical hippos and animals, but once I saw these awesome tag shapes, I was really sold on the set because it's so versatile. The other stamping we're going to do is on this top flap of our card base. So that is the part that will fold over. But I'm not going to fold my card. And actually, I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap paper and kind of line it up with that score line. And then I'm going to be using two stamps, the leaf and the kind of sprig. And I'm just going to kind of randomly intersperse these. Okay, and so there's the front of the card. It'll be this top flap. While I have these two stamps, I'm also going to stamp the side of my envelope. Like that. And then the other piece I'm going to stamp is the inside plate for the inside of the card. So you could, of course, stamp another greeting in here. There are lots of great options in the Tidings and Trimmings stamp set, but if you aren't sure what you want to say exactly for that greeting, you can do something like this. And that'll just be a nice little touch for the inside as well. Another great option for the inside, if you have extra designer series paper, you could cut a skinny little strip of that, maybe a 1/2 inch or so, and line the bottom of your basic white inside with that. Okay, our stamping is done, so I'm going to start with assembly. I'll come back to my card base that is already stamped, and I'm going to just fold this along both of the score lines. And then first I'm going to take my Stampin' seal and put that plate on the inside of the card. Next, I'll take my designer series paper and I'm going to adhere that to the bottom flap on the front of the card. So the skinnier piece that didn't get stamped. And I'm aiming for equal borders on this. It should also line up with the basic white. Okay. And next we need to assemble our label. So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually attach my floral pieces, the sprigs and leaves, to the back of the basic white label. And so I just kind of played around with placement until I liked how it looked. And then holding on to those pieces, I flipped over, and you could use Scotch tape again if you wanted, but I actually just decided to use some of my dimensionals overlapping to hold that in place. So I'll add a few more of those. And I'll adhere this to my soft succulent tag, which was also cut out using the Hippo and Friends dies. Okay, let's attach this to the card front. Now, big point here, when we are using the dimensionals to adhere, we don't want to accidentally adhere the card shut. So what I did was I took, and at the top, I put on a couple of dimensionals, and then I added a third in the center, at the bottom center of the card front. And that way I can make sure that I have some good dimensional coverage without accidentally gluing my card shut. So I'll close it and decide where I want my greeting positioned. And then the very last thing to add is my bow, which I tied using the soft succulent open weave ribbon. So I'll just pull up a mini glue dot, and then I am going to attach that to the corner of the tag. And with our envelope, there's the completed design. And one of the bonuses of participating in the class by mail is some sample card designs. First, I want to give you a little glimpse into the design process. So here's the final design that we used for this class by mail. This was an earlier iteration of that, so I tried the different orientation, similar layout, but ultimately I really decided that this Simply Elegant trim really stepped the card up. Again, as I was designing this stocking card, there were a few different iterations that I went through. So here was one with some die-cut designer series paper. Here's another one using the Misty Moonlight, which I really thought was pretty. And then here's a third version. This card was designed by Lori Camps, one of my stamping friends, and I just love the way it opens up, makes great use of the ribbon, as well as showcasing the beautiful designer series paper. When I see a beautiful pack of designer series paper like this, I'm always looking for ways to show that off and feature that on the card. So this was a really simple design, and I used the postage stamp punch to punch out 4 pieces of that and layer it up. Still with the goal of showcasing the designer series paper, I put together this layout. And one thing that I think is kind of funny, I was using my Hippo and Friends dies to cut out this greeting. And ultimately, I was just feeling lazy. I didn't want to find another set of dies to try to make a layer. And so I cut out the Evening Evergreen and put that behind. I thought that made it a little bit too long and narrow, so then I cut out a piece of the soft succulent as well and layered that. And so with both of those, I cut them in half down the middle and layered them behind. And at the end, I really liked this effect of the different colors showing through. And because I liked it so much, I decided to replicate that design with just some different colors, different designer series paper to showcase. And really, I could see doing this with many, many different combinations of the designer series paper, of the colors, of the ribbon. So there are a lot of ways that you could personalize this layout and make it your own. This card was inspired by the design that you'll see on the Pinterest board by Valley Inspirations with Andrea. And she used a very similar layout, but I switched up the color scheme here to feature our fresh freesia in color with the Highland Heather purple as well. And so I used some of the in color jewels. And finally, Brenda designed this really cute little gift box, and it has a belly band on it, so you can open it up. And I just love these boxes with the scalloped edge, so pretty. And then inside, she actually designed a bunch of 3" by 3" cards. So I'll show you all of those. I really like this 3 by 3 size because I don't always feel like I need to give a full size card, especially with something like a Christmas gift. So this is just a nice little size. I can write a short message, pop that on top of a wrapped gift or inside a gift bag, and still show off some of the beautiful products and cards that have been designed. And of course, this gift box itself would make a really great gift to someone. Thank you for participating in this month's Stampin' Class by Mail. Here's Brenda with a few more things for you.
Thanks for showing us how to make those fabulous holiday cards, Gina. If you ordered a class kit by mail from either Gina or me, make sure to follow the link in the email that shared this video with you for a specially curated Pinterest page that Gina and I put together with even more fun ideas for making use of your Tidings of Christmas materials. August is my turn to design and share the cards with you, and I'm excited to show you a sneak peek of the card designs featuring the Shaded Summer stamp set and the Summer Shadows dies. The stamp set can be found in Stampin' Up's 2021-2022 annual catalog, and the coordinating dies are part of Stampin' Up's celebration promotion that starts August 3rd. More about celebration in just a minute. Let's take a look at the 3 card designs for August class. Our first card design is the Posy birthday card. Using the largest flower image from the Shaded Summer stamp set, we'll create a coordinating background paper to go with one of the patterns from the Harvest Meadow Designer Series paper. The Harvest Meadow Designer Series paper is found in the new August to December 2021 mini catalog. We'll add color to our posies using sponge daubers and ink pads, a fun and fast coloring technique. As a bonus for this month's class, we'll include 3 sponge daubers with your kit. We'll also teach you how to frame a punched greeting with coordinated cardstock that uses 2 of the same punched images. And then to add just a little bling to our card, we'll add mint macaron genial gems. Our next card is a Bumblebee Posy Corner Tuck card. This is a fun fold card. Notice how the front of our card tucks behind the triangle of Designer Series paper. Our monochromatic card uses the coordinating Summer Shadows dies from the Celebration catalog to die cut the stamped Posy spray from the Shaded Summer stamp set. We'll also be using another pattern of the new Harvest Meadow Designer Series paper, and we'll add a bit of white 1/4-inch crinkle seam binding ribbon to add another texture to this fun card. Our third card design is the Calypso Coral Posy card. Here we'll feature the Summer Shadows dies from the Celebration catalog for our main focal point of our card. To highlight our posy, we'll use another sponge dauber technique. To tie the card together, we'll use a couple more patterns from the Harvest Meadow Designer Series paper, and we'll use a coordinating stamped image from the Shaded Summer stamp set to add a little something to the inside of our card. So again, here are our 3 card designs for the August class. The class includes all the supplies you'll need to make 3 each of the 3 card designs, including envelopes. All you need to add is a stamp set, inks, and adhesives. Again, the stamp set we'll be using is Shaded Summer. The inks we'll be using are Bumblebee, Calypso Coral, Crumb Cake, and Soft Succulent. And the adhesives you'll need include multi-purpose liquid glue, both mini and regular dimensionals, Stampin' Seal, and either Stampin' Seal Plus or tear and tape adhesive. We'll be using some elements that have been punched and die cut for you if you ordered a class kit by mail from either Gina or me. These elements include things from the Daisy and Everyday Label Punch and the Summer Shadows dies. The deadline to register and guarantee your kit supplies for this class is August 5th, 2021. However, if you register by July 27th, 2021, we'll include 2 bonus cards with envelopes with your August kit from our card stash. We also have some bonuses if you find new friends to take our Stampin' class by mail, so make sure to check your email or contact either Gina or me to learn more. If you're not already on one of our email lists, please reach out to Gina or me to learn more about this, about hosting a Stampin' Up event, other fun stamping opportunities with Stampin' Up, and of course, to learn all the benefits of joining the Stampin' Up family. As I mentioned earlier, Stampin' Up has a special promotion starting August 3rd called Celebration. This is one of their biggest promotions of the year. During Celebration, choose from a great assortment of new exclusive stamping items for free when you place a Stampin' Up order, host a Stampin' Up party, or join the Stampin' Up family. Again, Celebration starts August 3rd and runs through September 30th, 2021. Contact Gina or me for all the details about this fabulous promotion. And as always, we appreciate any feedback you might have about our Stampin' class by mail. Until next month, happy stamping!